In this video, we are going to learn how to factor quadratic expressions when the leading coefficient is either 1 or -1. Now, factoring is rewriting an expression as a product of two factors. Now let's talk about what a product of two factors looks like. It looks like x plus 4 times x plus 2, where one factor is x plus 4 and the other factor is x plus 2. So this is what the end goal of factoring a quadratic would look like. So if I were to multiply this out, meaning distribute the x plus 4 in, I would get x times x plus 4 plus 2 times x plus 4. And then I would distribute in the x and the 2, so I would get x times x plus x times 4 plus 2 times x plus 2 times 4. And then multiplying all of those out, I get x squared plus 4x plus 2x plus 8. And that's going to be equal to x squared plus 6x plus 8. So we can say that x squared plus 6x plus 8 can factor into x plus 4 times x plus 2. So it seems that to factor x squared plus 6x plus 8, we kind of think of FOIL in reverse. Meaning we're trying to think, if we only had x squared plus 6x plus 8, I'm thinking, okay, I want my first terms when I multiply them out to have a product of x squared, which if they're both just x, then that's guaranteed. And the products of the outer and inner, so again, x times x would be first, and then the outer, which would be x times 2, and the inner, 4 times x. The sum of those two should be 6x, which if I do 2x, x times 2 and 4 times x, that's 2x plus 4x, which would be 6x. And then my last terms have a product of 8, because I know this is going on here. So that gives me the x squared, 6x, and 8. So if I keep in mind that, I'm really just looking for two numbers that have a sum for 6x, a sum of 6, and a product of 8, because 4 plus 2 is 6, and 4 times 2 is 8. That's kind of like that relationship that's going on there. So we're just looking for two such numbers that their sum is b, whatever that coefficient is, and their product is c. And typically, listing out factors of c is a good place to start when factoring. So let's look over here. We have x squared plus 9x plus 20. So I'm looking at 9 to be my b and 20 to be my c. And I want to find two numbers that their products are 20 and their sum is 9. So if I were to take two things that multiplied to 20, that would be like 1 and 20. Adding together both of those terms, both of those numbers, I get 21, which doesn't add to 9, which means this will not factor the way I want it to if I use x plus 1 and x plus 20, because I'll end up with a 21x in the middle. So let's try out another one. So we'll think 2 and 10, which gives me 12, which is closer, but still not quite 9. And I still have 4 and 5, which when added together gives me 9. So that matches up perfectly, meaning my factors should be x plus 4 times x plus 5. And if I were to check this, the first terms give me x times x, x squared. Outer is x times 5, which is 5x. Inner is 4x, so 5x plus 4x is 9x. And then 4 times 5, my last term, is multiplied to give me 20. So it does, in fact, work. Checking your answer at the end can help you factor better in the future. Now let's try this next one. Now I have negative 72. So now this is a negative number for C and a positive number for B. So I need to think of two numbers that multiply to give me 72. Now again, I can think of 1 and 72. That will multiply to give me a positive 72, but which one should I make negative? Well, I want them to add to a positive number. So I'll always make my lower number negative. So here I have negative 1 times 72, which will add to give me 71. So that's way too big for that 14. So I'll try something else. There's also negative 2 and 36. Again, choosing negative 2, so when they add, I get a positive number. And they add to give me 34, which still isn't quite there. Now I also have negative 3 times 24, which gives me 21. Still looking for the right one to use. And I also have negative 4 times 18, which when added together gives me 14, which is the combo I'm looking for. And if you're wondering, there is still one more way to make 72 with negative 8 times 9, and that is certainly true. But if I were to use that multiplication, I would only get 1, which would be too small for that middle term. So now this factors into x minus 4 times x plus 18. And again, checking it, x times x is x squared. Outer and inner would be 18x plus negative 4x, which would be 14. And negative 4 times 18 is negative 72. So that would be how you factor that quadratic. Now lastly, I have a coefficient of negative 1. Now simply put, the best way to handle this situation, if you want to be as simple as x times x gives you x squared, is we're going to factor out that negative to start. So negative times x squared minus 13x plus 12. This will just make the factoring process easier. And we'll also have a negative factored out. So again, after I factor out the negative, I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to 12, but add to negative 13. So again, if that negative is still out in front, this wouldn't be the same scenario. Because the reason why I could just find for B and C is because it's positive x squared, giving me just that x times x that's always being guaranteed. So I needed to factor out that negative. But now let's look for two things that multiply to 12 but add to negative 13. Well, that's strange. If I do 3 times 4, that's a positive 7. That's not even close. So it makes me think that I shouldn't use 3 and 4 to help me find this. I should probably use something like negative 3 and negative 4, because that will multiply to give me a positive 12. But when I add them, it'll give me a negative number. Unfortunately, negative 7 isn't low enough, so I'd still have to try another one. So there's also negative 2 times negative 6 gives me positive 12, but they add together to give me negative 8, which isn't quite low enough. And I still have negative 1 and negative 12, which when they add together give me negative 13. So perfect, that's the term I was looking for. So now when I factor, I had already factored out a negative, so let's still factor it out. And my two factors will be x minus 1 times x minus 12. And again, checking that are, oops, forgot the x. The first term's x times x is x squared. Outer and inner will be negative 12x minus x, which is negative 13x. And negative 1 times negative 12 is positive 12. And then after I multiply that negative, I'll get back to the original. So my answer is negative of x minus 1 times x minus 12. And that's how you factor negative x squared plus 13x minus 12. And that is how you factor quadratic expressions where the leading coefficient is either 1 or negative 1.